So I think this is a very tough time, okay, to give a session because I think you may be tired out from the morning itself. How many of you have visited the Golden Temple today or maybe yesterday? Anyone? Yesterday. How was it? How was the experience? Okay. So let me quickly start because I have only 15 minutes. So do excuse me for some rush. We may have more technical discussion if you visit our booth. Our booth is A7. And definitely you can be a winner to win an Alexa Echo Show. I get to know from my marketing team that they have few Alexa Echo Shows. So you can participate in the quiz. Quiz answers will be there in my slides. So do watch it. Okay, you don't have any other option. Okay, so let's go into it. And I think from yesterday itself, I am hearing zero trust. I think is a hot topic. Okay, so the intent is not to bore you with more of a zero trust and maybe stick to certain concepts which I have learned over the period of time. And I thought I'll share that with you. So let's start from a zero trust piece. And if you see, what is typically we do in every morning when we start our work, okay, and that's typically depend on how we go and align our securities and other things related to it. So the typical day for any of us start from checking certain mails on our devices, which may be managed, unmanaged through our phones. We use collaboration platforms over the period of time. From the last 2 years, we are using a collaboration platform. Talking to people, we go and access the internet. People who have access certain applications like we typically go and access Salesforce, check our commits, call and talk to you and say, boss, order kab tak aayega? Okay. So we have to go and access those applications which are there in the cloud. There are certain data and activities which happen over the period of time. So if you see overall morning for any IT individual or a person, it's comprised of multiple sessions. Those multiple sessions can be from different devices, can be from different applications, can be over the internet. And I'm not segregating applications into whether it's a cloud-based or private applications-based and all. So let's see, when you see that problem in your environment and you want to implement some zero trust piece to it, how you can go and build a zero trust into these multi-sessions and multiple access environment, and I'll be covering that one by one. I'm sure you have seen that zero trust maturity model by CISA, which talks about these 5 pillars, right? So it talks about identity, device, application workloads, data, network, okay, all these 5 pillar components where you can go and stitch your zero trust security into, okay, and then definitely there will be a visibility, analytics, governance, which goes into it. And I'll be typically talking about each and every pillar, that how Forcepoint can help you in achieving those zero trust rather than complexing the problem overall. So from an identity piece of it, if you see, there are behavior-based solutions, and we are also focusing on the user context attribute of it. Okay, so typically when we are providing a user context, we are understanding the user activities. We do have a native IDP capabilities. We do integrate with the third-party IDP, and the focus is purely on the identity side of it. Because if you see, identity is the core piece when you go and do certain transformations back to the cloud, right? Whether you are doing with any vendor, right? Identity is the core piece which typically helps. And what we are trying to do with the identity is we are understanding that user context and making sure that we can create certain user profile based on categories and then do certain adaptive controls based on that. That's the intent of going on the identity side of it. Now, from a device piece of it, I think there are certain factors which typically talking about how you can go and implement a zero trust to the device. Can we do something where we can assess a device posture? Now, device posture can be accessed via multiple ways, right? We are also doing through an agent which typically understand what that user machines, whether they are a part of a domain, whether they are running with the specific EDR versions, whether they are Apaches, whether they are a registry path related to it. So that's where you will get a device posture piece of it, and you can have maybe n number of other ways to implement a zero trust on the device level, right? And it can be maybe as simple as a NAC solution as well. The third thing is, from an application side of it, you have heard of this technology multiple times, right? CASBs, ZTNAs, secure web gateways, application security, workload protections and all. But the intent is, when I am managing my device continuously, can I also manage what are the access which is giving back to those applications? Now, those applications may be managed by you, may not managed by you. Okay, so they sit into different categories. But the intent that we are bringing here is, can I give you a visibility? Can I give you a way to see what are the applications running within your environment? We, in a technical terms, may call it as a shadow IT risk, but that visibility will give you a next step. Okay, what your user are doing on those, what are the activities they are performing, and then you can derive certain risk assessments out of it, right? So if you see, you can assess what are your top applications, what are the newly discovered applications from the last, you can say from the last 15 days, 1 week, 30 days and all. So that's typically give you application visibility for public applications which fall into CASB technology piece of it, or maybe from a private application piece of it. So that's typically help you in achieving a zero trust security to the application side of it. Now, can anyone tell what this image is all about? I think it's an image which comes in August and purely talk about a James Webb telescope, right? The first full color image. Now, are you aware that there is an attack which has been launched by using this image? Okay. So what that attack was? The attack was web obfuscator attack. And let's understand that attack. So the traditional method used some phishing email, some office documents, and within that office document there is an XML. And that XML was typically someone will go and download it, and it was hosted on a specific domain. So on that day, the virus total was also saying the domain was clean. There was no threat on that. Okay, so that was the stage one, where they were trying to send email, contains an attachment, and within that attachment there is some active code which was planted to execute it. Now the stage one, if stopped, then there is also a stage two. The stage two was purely that there is an exe path was embedded into an image. Okay, and it was a multi-stage attack. Now the only way you can understand this attack and the difference between a good image and a bad image is based on the file size, right? Based on the payload. Okay, but how with the zero trust content based approach we can able to address this? So we gone into a one layer above from a zero trust and focused on the content piece of it. Not only just from a data access, but from a content piece of it. And we embedded a technology which we call as a CDR. It's not another sister and brother for EDR. It's a content disarm and reconstruction. So it extract the content of the file, verify that file based on the multiple schema validations and other things, and then recreate a new file. Okay. So this kind of an attack, this kind of a solution typically can combat any steganography malware attacks, any office documents malware attacks, and give you a file which is 100% malware free. Now, that is the only method? Yes, there are other technologies. There is a technology which is very famous, browser isolation. Can I isolate a browser if I'm accessing any web? And it's not a new technology. It's there in the market from the last 5-6 years. But what we have understood and matured over the isolation piece and focus on the zero trust web access and the content accesses, can we do a smart isolations? Why I want to isolate everything to a pixel rendering, and we can understand offline what the pixel and secure rendering is. Can I do something where if something on the destination is maybe good, I'll go with fast delivery, or if something suspicious, I will go with the secure delivery. And then you can go and embed CDR. Definitely in the browser isolation session, you can also do a data intelligence. So Forcepoint, I think I don't need to introduce Forcepoint for the data protection piece of it. And then you can also do and mitigate credential thefts, where you can execute and load a page in a read-only. Like typically Google Forms, surveys are used for credential thefts. Okay, so that's a secure server. Now the data security, I think I'm not going too much into it, but the things has been extended over the channels, right? So the data which was only meant to be secured on endpoint, email, web, now also needs to be secured on cloud. So CASB technologies come into picture. Needs to be secured while accessing private apps. So ZTNA comes into picture. So we make sure that you're implementing data security also into across these channels in an adaptive way. But what about data classification? Boss, Forcepoint, you always talk about your predefined templates. You always talk about your ABC fingerprinting. You talk about your machine learning. Can you do on data classification? So we heard you. So we launched classification tool. Now what's the difference between this classification tool and the traditional one? So we make sure, one, it will enforce and integrate with our data protections and the cloud platforms. And we have also gone to a machine learning piece of it, rather than just doing a user-driven, suggested. Can I train a classifiers to help an end user to do a machine learning based classifications? Okay. And then from the network side of it, I think you all know ZTNA, right? It's an architecture change, which typically embedded on the network access piece of it. And not only ZTNA, the other layer which also embedded on the network piece of it is an SD-WAN, okay? And the people are now talking about, can you do a containerization? Can you do a ZTNA approach with an SD-WAN? Yes, we do. And we are launching that soon. So, just to conclude on that part, so there are 4 things which we have embedded into our platform, which is purely from the access part of it, from a usage part of it, from a data part of it, and definitely on the content part of it, is building this architecture which focused on securing you over the internet, over accessing cloud applications, private applications, securing your email securities, talking about a microservices which run in the AWS cloud, AWS native, focusing on threat and data, and definitely the foundation, as I mentioned, on all those 5 pillars. So the one thing is sure, these 5 pillars can't be trusted. You have to implement, never trust, always verify. But one thing you can still trust, if you have visited it, is this place. Okay? So please do visit and capture that spiritual experience, because you may not get that in the next time. Okay? So with that, I'll conclude my sessions. Please do visit. In the next 5 minutes, we'll running a Kahoot. So please leverage that platform. Thank you so much.